Hi and welcome to SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now, leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Back once again for Ask SCW, answering your questions in the wrestling community. Taking your questions as always from Twitter.com as well. You can always get involved on Instagram, Facebook, or you can even drop a comment here on YouTube. Leave the hashtag AskSCW and you know that I'll be answering in the next video. Just quickly before we can dive into the questions this week, thinking of starting something called SCW Daily. Just giving a daily thought, a video maybe a few minutes long, maybe 5 to 10 minutes long, just on a certain subject each and every day on professional wrestling. If you're interested in the idea of me doing that, then I might do that next week. If you are interested in it, then drop a like or drop a comment in the comment section and let me know that you'll be on board with that. It could be anything in the broader wrestling, could be WWE, could be AEW, could be Impact, could be anything across the board. Just a little subject, something in the world of wrestling going on each and every day. Just something to tick the channel over, something to give you something to watch each and every day as well. Just something, a bit of entertainment while we're all still on this lockdown. But anyway, without further ado, let's dive into the first question this week. And that first question comes from Carmine Rocco. Any thoughts on the corporate Money in the Bank match? Fantastic question to ask there, and yeah, what a strange concept. I didn't really expect to see this coming. So the corporate Money in the Bank ladder match is going to be at the WWE headquarters, the Titan Towers. So going to be interesting how that's going to be put together. Obviously, going to be pre-recorded. Probably looking at another cinematic type match. I don't necessarily feel that the Money in the Bank ladder match needed the change because the ladder match itself is something unique within the show that's different to a regular one-on-one encounter anyway. But I guess WWE feel, well, this is not in front of a crowd. We want to break the show up. We don't want it to be in front of nobody the whole way through and it being just obvious. So if we've got a way where we can record something and do something that's a little bit unique and a little bit different, it could be a one-time only thing. This is why they're going to put this together. And for me, I am kind of open-minded. I would turn around and say that I'm not sure it's going to be the best thing that's ever done. I'm not sure if it's going to make an improvement to the Money in the Bank concept or not. But what I would say is that at this particular time, the Boneyard match, the Firefly Funhouse match, Gargano and Ciampa, all of them had their strengths, their positives, and cinematic wrestling at the moment seems to be on the up. So if they want to try something different, now probably is the time, because we're probably going to be a little bit more forgiving than perhaps if you look back at maybe say the House of Horrors match that was done a few years ago, and that style then that didn't quite work with Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt. So would I have done it perhaps with a different match on the card? Perhaps. But at the same time, I kind of feel that they've got an idea, they've got a concept, and they want to try it out. So yeah, let's see where it goes. I'm open-minded, as I say. This could be good, it could be bad, it could be downright ugly. The interesting part with it, for me, just before we move on to the next question, I think is going to be the fact that we've got 2 ladder matches. How are we going to make them seem a bit unique and different? Is it going to be just for one of the ladder matches, or have we got it for both the men's and women's? It seems strange if it would be just for one and not the other. So they need to find a way to make each match unique without it being absolutely identical. Even though the Money in the Bank ladder match is kind of identical, you get where I'm coming from. Different superstars bring different elements of character to the match and to the event, and it would be a good way to try and showcase those personalities if you're going to do a cinematic style match. So there could be some all-out bonkers things with this. I mean, we could even find cameos involved in here with, the WWE headquarters. We may see Vince, we may even see Shane, Triple H, Stephanie, we may even see Linda. You never know. There could be just those nice little bits of cameos in, perhaps people getting in the way, how they're going to use stairs, whether someone use a lift. There's all different ways that you can make this kind of interesting and fun. So as I say, open-minded and kind of, if anything, I'm curious. I'm interested. You've got my attention. Next question comes from Joseph Ashcraft, and it's on a similar theme. Why did WWE move Money in the Bank from the Performance Center? Well, as I said a minute ago, that I think they don't want to keep the show all in just the Performance Center, and this is their way of breaking everything up. They did that with WrestleMania. They felt that if you have 1 or 2 matches that are maybe cinematic, it breaks the show up. I think when you've got like Raw and SmackDown, they're happy to keep the shows in the Performance Center. And obviously we've got your promos and you've got your bits and bobs like that. They kind of feel, right, okay, the show kind of breaks up in itself. But when it comes to a pay-per-view, it's match after match. You've probably got 7, 8 matches on the card. And rather than it being just like match after match with complete silence, this way they've got 2 matches here that they can do something different, and we can have one of the Money in the Bank matches probably say third or fourth in the card, and you've got the other one, as the seventh or eighth match, and that way it really it breaks up the show, and you kind of forget almost that you're watching an empty arena. So for me, it's kind of interesting, that point. I think that's why they're going down that road and avenue. Next question comes from Pro Wrestling Ratings. How many levels are there at WWE HQ? Well, I actually had to Google this to get you the correct answer. There's actually 7 floors, so it's interesting to see if they're going to start at the bottom. They've got to work their way to the top. Apparently, they've done some filming at the top. There's going to be a ring. It's going to be interesting where they're going to grab the briefcase from, because isn't the sky above? I don't know. It's going to be. There's so many different questions that are unanswered with this, but it's certainly going to be interesting. And the fact that there's 7 floors means that there's ways where people will be on different levels all the way through, and there's certain levels of interest and intrigue in. I think what's fun about this as well is that not necessarily the best person here would be obvious to win, because it's going to suit here someone that's quite agile, that can quickly get up the stairs, or someone that's faster that can get away from it. It's almost like a race rather than actually a competitive match. So this way, I suppose as well, it doesn't necessarily harm the more high-profile superstars if they wasn't to come out on top during this. So it's very interesting indeed. But yes, seven floors, and I believe there's quite a lot of square meters in this as well. So hopefully between the men's and the women's, they can actually use different areas of the headquarters, and I think that would break it up and definitely make it more interesting. Next question comes from Noob and Co. Who is the mysterious hacker, and is it targeting the tag teams on SmackDown? We've covered the Money in the Bank ladder match this year taking place at WWE HQ, but the other question asked here is, what are your thoughts on all the talent being released this week? So let's start off with the hacker on SmackDown, one of probably the more interesting storylines going on that show at the minute. Does seem to be targeting the tag teams indeed. If you look this week, the last video that was produced and showcased by the hacker seemed to show not just only male tag teams but female ones. An interesting note I felt through a lot of the road to WrestleMania was that it was following Dolph Ziggler around. There were a number of options of how it can be, but what I think is most interesting is that it's probably going to lead to a tag team in some format. I love the inclusion of the female tag teams this week, because it almost implied that this could have a female member involved in this. Maybe this is not just a tag team, maybe it's a stable, maybe that it's 2 guys and 2 girls, who knows, but it's certainly figureheaded by one individual. The rumour for the longest time was that it was Ali that's behind this. Of course, he's not been on WTV for a long time. He was teaming with Shorty G beforehand, so there is that potential that him and Chad Gable may have changed the gimmick very quickly, which would be, for me, a bonus for his career, to have that change so early. I don't think I've seen him since around the Royal Rumble. I think was the last time we see Shorty G in competition. Interesting enough, we've not seen Bobby Roode for a number of weeks now. And I do wonder if there was any link with that as well. Certainly just another name just to throw in there as a suggestion. But because Dolph Ziggler, of course, has not been teaming with Roode since, I believe, the Elimination Chamber. So it's going to be interesting to see who or what it is. The favourite, I should say, for the longest time was Ali. But time will tell on it. But Ali and Shorty G perhaps could be the one. The only thing I do feel is with that, how believable is it going to be? I kind of feel like when you see this hacker that it needs to almost be like heel characters, and they need to be kind of dominant. So in one way, I would have loved to have seen the hacker be someone that led a tag team like the AOP, for example. Not that we're going to see the AOP, it's just an example, but someone of a dominant, strong sort of tag team like that would have been quite cool. But time will tell anyway. We'll have to wait and see. As for the talent being released, it's been a bad week, isn't it? To be fair, there's been a lot of question marks whether this was necessary or needed. If you listen to Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez on the F4W Online, there's been a lot of suggestions that WWE is still, it's saving them a bit of money, but I know they've lost money, but they're not really in a situation where they kind of needed to. When you look at the talent themselves, for a long time, you can see WWE has been stockpiling. They've been making sure that other companies have not had the ability or luxury, shall we say, to get other talents so easily. Particularly AEW feels that was the intention. But with a lot of superstars that have been released there, it kind of feels that with a number of them, particularly the main roster ones, a lot of them had either asked for their release or would have probably been cut at a different time anyway. I think that the feeling is, and the issue with what a lot of people have a problem with, is the timing of it. It's a time where everyone wants to stick together, and if you don't need to make these cuts, then I think that it's looked poorly that you do. But we don't know. We're not involved with WWE. We're not involved with the financial side of everything. Obviously, the XFL probably has played its part in this as well, of that being completely done, and I believe filed for bankruptcy, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, I guess that Vince is probably looking to save some money if and where he can, and this is the way of doing it. I think the biggest surprise for me was Anderson and Gallows being involved in a WrestleMania main event this year on night one with AJ Styles, and I think they're going to be a big miss. I was really enjoying the work of the OC, and they were, you know, meant to be the best tag team in the world this time 4 months ago. So interesting that they've been let go. But so many names that have been released, and I'm trying to do during this that hopefully you're going to see all the talents that have been released up to this point. But yeah, you can see there's been so many there from NXT. There's been producers. There's been, you know, all sorts of people that have been released here. But I do think that a number of them eventually will find homes again to continue competing. I think AEW will pick up a few of these superstars. I don't expect all of them. If I had to guess, I would say Zack Ryder would be one of them. I think Cody is a big fan of Zack. Obviously, the Revival were released last week, so that discussion was on this episode last week, and I assume that they will be involved in some form. And we'll have to wait and see with the others, but Rusev would probably be a strong shout as well. EC3, Drake Maverick, perhaps they could go back to Impact Wrestling. We'll have to wait and see. I think that would be a natural fit, but I have seen amongst on Twitter, a lot of people would love to see EC3 with MJF, if that's a potential or something that could happen. I mean, they would be great with the gimmick together. I think they both have kind of got similar gimmicks, especially when EC3 is at his best as a heel. But you look at the producers, and just to go on to the producers quickly, rumours that a lot of them are furlough, I believe is the word that's been used, where they're not actually fired, they are kind of just laid off for now, and I think the intention is to bring people back when things improve, hopefully in not so distant future, but say it's in 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, and some of these people are brought back. This can be the case for some of the superstars as well, but a lot of the names on the list, I wasn't so surprised. I think a few people were surprised with Cassius Ohno from NXT UK. I don't know, it just, something hasn't connected with me to Cassius Ohno the whole way through his WWE run this second time round. I remember the first time round when NXT was in its very early days in 2012. I was a big fan of Ohno, and I was like, this guy's got something, should be on, you know, Raw and SmackDown anytime now. And then all of a sudden it just didn't work out. And I feel that when he come back this time, I don't know, I just felt it just didn't connect for me. That it always just felt like he was someone that was never going to make it to the main roster, and was there almost as someone to enhance the new guys coming in. He dropped down to NXT UK, and I do think he's done some great work in NXT UK. Don't get me wrong, the wrestling genius and the true British wrestler has been a great fun gimmick to watch. But at the same time, you know, you look at that and saying, well, rather than moving up, I mean, no disrespects, I mean, as well as someone who's in the United Kingdom, to WWE's priorities, that's kind of the lowest that you can probably go. And yeah, I guess they kind of felt with perhaps that there was no future for him. It's a shame. You feel very sorry for these performers. I mean, you know, they've all, like us, they've all got families to feed. They all want to make a living, and it's such a difficult, uncertain time that you don't wish it on anybody. But it's happening in all realms of life. It's not just in wrestling. There's a lot of people losing work. A lot of people unable to earn money right now. So it's a very difficult time for everyone. And of course we feel sorry for them, but of course you feel sorry for everybody that's going through such a difficult time right now, and going through the true tragedies of what COVID-19 is actually bringing. Next question comes from Get Chill Wrestling Podcast. Since Karl Anderson is hinting at going back to New Japan Pro Wrestling already, do you think Gallows is a lock to go with him? If he doesn't, how does Anderson fare as a solo wrestler? Yeah, well, the Machine Gun video came out rather quickly, and yeah, it seems like Japan could be the destination. I mean, rumours were that Anderson and Gallows both asked for their releases about a year ago, and it wasn't granted, but then they eventually signed new big money deals to stay with the company. Maybe that was remembered in the time of when they were released, where these guys did want to leave at one point, so we'll let them go. Whether they still wanted to go is probably a new question altogether. I think at this time, whether anyone wants to be without somewhere right now, of course no one does. I'm sure everyone would have wanted to stay where they were for the time being, but it seems that that video came out very quickly, so it feels that this is something that's probably been in the pipeline or the mindset of Karl Anderson for a short time. We have to remember that a number of years ago, Karl Anderson was actually a solo wrestler. He was a singles competitor, and he fared just fine. I believe that maybe 2013 or 14 that he joined with Luke Gallows. Of course, Gallows at that point, I think beforehand, had been in Impact Wrestling, a part of the Aces and Eights storyline that was going on. So Karl Anderson has been a solo wrestler before. I don't think it'd be an issue for him to go back to that sort of idea if it was to do it again. But from what I understand is that both him and Luke Gallows have released some merchandise together as well. I think that's been a big key thing. You've seen a lot of these release wrestlers releasing new t-shirts of pro wrestling tees, for example, and it's a great way to support wrestlers, by the way. Out there, their merchandise at this point, if anyone wants to go and support their wrestling, feels bad for any of these guys. Heath Slater's got a new t-shirt out, the I Got Fired t-shirt, and I believe there's a few others that have done the same. Drake Maverick as well being another one. I know that's not really in your question, but Drake Maverick, how heartbreaking was his video on Twitter? That was a hard watch. You really felt sorry for the guy. I actually do think that the guy, Drake Maverick, actually has got potential to be back in WWE at some stage, just purely because you see how much he wants it and see how much it's hurt him, and I think he's going to get a lot of fan support during this time, and it can be a situation that WWE will notice, and he might come back at some point down the line. But you mentioned with Karl Anderson, I think it's a lock. He goes back to New Japan. I think Gallows will go with him, if I'm brutally honest. The question is when do these shows get started again? Because at the moment, New Japan is not really doing anything from what I'm aware of. A lot of shows or a lot of companies are not doing stuff at the moment, and it could be months before they do again. So, WWE are doing shows. I believe Impact Wrestling are taping, but I'm not 100% on that. AEW are taped until the middle of May, but there's no concrete of what they're doing after that. So, it's not like a guarantee that you go straight into somewhere. But I'm sure these guys have all been paid fairly well up to this point, so let's hope that they will be fine during this time period. But I think Karl Anderson will be fine whatever he does, but I do think that him and Luke Gallows will be back, and if I had to predict, I think they'll be back in the Bullet Club by the end of the year. Next question comes from Dan Williams, Dan the man. Do you think they will make SummerSlam the biggest show now because they've missed out on WrestleMania? Well, there's a good shout on that, because obviously if we can have fans back in arenas by that point, that's the real question here to give you a good answer for this one. But if we can have fans back in the show, SummerSlam is usually the second biggest show of the year. It's the hottest show of the summer, and it would be a good way to make up for what had gone on. You can obviously bring back things like the Hall of Fame, for example, throw that in at that point, because that would be a great place to do it. That way your class of 2020 still get their Hall of Fame moment. You've got your NXT TakeOver, you've got your SummerSlam show. It's not going to be a stadium because it's been booked for an arena already, and should that be able to go ahead, then that would be the way to do it. The fear factor for me is that there's so many people in the same place that I'm not so convinced that by that point we will be back to having everything back to normal. I think at best you would have some capacity, but I could see social distancing taking fair for a long time. It can be a case of where there's one person sitting every 3 or 4 seats, where in that case you would question if it would be worth doing or not. I don't know. It's one of those things at the moment. It's really hard to answer because life at the moment dictates and wrestling comes second. But if all was back to normal, then without question, definitely SummerSlam would become the biggest show of the year, and I think WWE would put all those eggs in that basket. Next question comes from Pro Wrestling Talk. Do you think WWE will reschedule this year's Hall of Fame to later on in the year? Well, as I mentioned in the last question, if you get the opportunity to put it, get the audiences back together, I don't see why they wouldn't do it, because they give the opportunity to let the Hall of Famers have that moment. If all the schedules can work together, SummerSlam would be a perfect time to do it. Survivor Series could be a time to do it. There's no reason why they couldn't. But it is a WrestleMania tradition, so I do kind of wonder if they will drag it over and maybe have like a mega Hall of Fame next year and just make it the best Hall of Fame induction of all time and put, you know, another 3 or 4 names in it. But the only question with that is, though, then it becomes a super long show. And I mean, if you make Hall of Fame 2 nights in a row, that could be quite a lot as well. If you're going to add that for ticket admission for prices for people when it comes to the next WrestleMania. So, I mean, I think if they have the opportunity to do it later this year, I think they will do it. But it all comes down to whether we will be able to have the life we knew before all of this started, unfortunately. So we're going to have to wait and see at this point. But I think the intention would be to do it. And I do think if they can do it, SummerSlam would be the best place to do it. Next question comes from Mike, Italian Habs Mike. Howard Finkel, without a doubt, is the greatest ring announcer ever, and I believe no one will ever be as good as the Fink. 2-part question here. What made Fink stand above others, and which current ring announcer is the best now? Well, the Fink just had it, didn't he? He had the great voice, and everything just felt so important that, you know, he was gifted with this incredible voice that was just suited for this role. And just everything that you did, you paid attention. When the Fink spoke, you listened. And I think that's what made him stand out and made him so great. And he of course, was around during arguably the time where this all took off. You know, the Fink was, you know, a legend. You see the clips from SmackDown this week when they show the video package of him. He was always someone that was willing to have fun, a great Fink story, and a lot of us grew up with the Fink, and I think that's kind of what makes him stand out as the best ever. You know, when you hear those and new champion, and you know it's like scheduled for 1-4, and I don't know, just everything about it. Every time he opened his mouth, you listened. It felt legit and it felt important. And I agree with you. He is probably the best that there ever has been to do that job. And when I look at people now, I'm quite a fan of Greg Hamilton, just purely because I think that he has a great sound to his voice when he does his announcing. It's kind of like the closest thing of like you pay attention. I think he had a great way of connecting with the audience as well. At one point when he had the 1-4 thing and then everyone did 1-4. I know that's kind of been taken away now a little bit, but I mean he was the guy that brought that in. I just think Greg Hamilton is the best announcer they've currently got. Mike Rome is decent, but he does have his moments where you can see he just isn't quite up to the Greg Hamilton level. I'm with Impact Wrestling. Their announcer is okay, but I'm more of a fan of Greg Hamilton. Just trying to think, even when it comes to, I mean, Justin Roberts in AEW is fantastic as well. Let's not take away from him. I would say that Justin Roberts and Greg Hamilton are probably a top 2, but I would go with Greg Hamilton just because, like I say, I think he carries the most credibility with things going around at the moment with the current crop of superstars within wrestling. Straight Edge Josh with our next question. What's your take on Jordan Devlin being replaced as champ for a period of time? Well, of course, yeah, the Cruiserweight division is going to have a new champion, an interim Cruiserweight champion, and we've started now, and it's almost, like the New Japan style. We've got 2 groups here of like 4 superstars all going to face each other, and the best of each group faces in the final. I think it's a great way to crown the champion. It's better than just doing a tournament, which a tournament is good. I love tournaments, but I mean, it's something different, and we see AEW's doing a tournament right now, so this is a way of doing kind of the same thing, but doing it different, and it's nice to see that creative spark come from WWE, because a lot of the time it feels that because they are the big dog in town, they do the tried and tested, and it's up for the other companies to try and come up with that creative difference. I know, like I said, this sort of thing's been done in New Japan, so it's not completely innovative, but certainly for within WWE, it's a creative way of doing things. I think it will be good because you can build up a new champion in the meantime. Jordan Devlin obviously is unable to travel to the United States. Not sure when NXT UK is going to get back going again. So for the moment, they are minus a champion. They don't want the division to go cold, go quiet. They don't want people to forget that there's a Cruiserweight division. There's so many great Cruiserweight wrestlers. So why not crown a new champion in the meantime? It gives someone an opportunity to stand out and have their moment and become the Cruiserweight champion. They can carry the brand for the next few months. And when things come back together, then you've got a ready-made match. I mean, name the superstar that's Let's go with Kushida. Let's say Kushida is the guy. I mean, he could do with that rub. He's someone that would be really desperate here. But I love the way they've built Phantasma. Obviously, I've seen Phantasma in Lucha Underground as King Cuerno. We've seen him in Impact Wrestling. We've seen him in AAA. The guy is a really talented wrestler. I'm interested to see what he's going to bring to the table in NXT, and I actually believe that he's going to be someone that is going to be a force to be reckoned with in that tournament. So I reckon Phantasma Kushida will walk away as the new Cruiserweight Champion, and then you've got a great match set forward with Jordan Devlin somewhere down the line, and who knows, the belt might go back to Devlin straight then, or there might be a case where this person has been able to elevate themselves and take the spot, which has happened so many times in WWE. You've only got to look with Kofi Kingston last year. Kofi Mania wasn't supposed to happen. He filled the role, he filled the spot, and hey, he became WWE Champion, did it so well, he was champion for 6 months. So, I mean, this is an opportunity for someone. It sucks for Jordan Devlin, but he'll get his opportunity somewhere down the line, and like we say, I mean, he's a young guy, he's a very talented individual, and his time will come again, and who knows, when things go back to normal, he may just immediately become back, once again, Cruiserweight Champion. The Faithful Messiah with our next question for us now. What are your thoughts on Killcrosss's debut and choice of first opponents? Well, we did sort of talk about Killcrosss in the last couple of episodes, and I did think Ciampa was the right guy to go for. I felt months ago the right guy to go for was Johnny Gargano when he was a face, because it was like the heart and soul of NXT. Well, it kind of feels that both him and Ciampa have been arguing over who is the heart and soul of NXT over the number of weeks, and Ciampa's the face, and yeah, I mean, why not? It really puts Killcrosss at a top level straight away. I mean, Ciampa has main evented so many takeovers, is arguably the top face amongst the NXT, roster at the moment. People may argue the Velveteen Dream, but Ciampa has been champion for, a long time. Dream is building himself up to become someone that could become the champion. So, I mean, for me, it's the perfect place for Killcrosss to come in and debut. We see Scarlett with him as well. I think they're going to be a great partnership. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what this duo is going to bring to the table. I'm a big fan of Killcrosss. His work in Impact Wrestling was insane. Every promo this guy delivers, you feel it and you believe it. And I think a character really is someone that, someone you can buy into and believe in. And I also believe that with Killcrosss, that he's someone that could make his way to the very top of WWE. I think we have got a megastar on our hands here just purely because of the fact that he can wrestle in the ring. He's a bigger guy, and with the promo side of things, he's got this psychotic heel kind of vibe, and yeah, he's very believable, and that's something that you could argue is lacking in some areas of wrestling right now, of the believability of someone being that character, someone being that superstar, being the guy. And I think Killcrosss, when it comes to that heel side, I think he's got it, and I think he's got potential where he'll become NXT champion at some point. I wouldn't even be surprised to see him fast-tracked to Raw, SmackDown. But I personally am happy to see him in NXT right now because I think that he's got a lot to offer, a lot to give. And yeah, I wouldn't want to see everything rushed. And with so many superstars, you see it rushed and you feel that perhaps maybe, 2-3 months down the line when they've done that initial storyline, they get lost in the shuffle. So here on NXT, it's not going to happen with Killcrosss, especially with the number of releases that have happened with NXT over the last few days as well. You can see that Killcrosss is here and he's here to stay. Taya World Order with our next question here for us now. Fantasy book the Impact Rebellion main event. Tessa Blanchard, the champion, of course, going to be defending in a triple threat match against Eddie Edwards and Michael Elgin. How does the match go? Who wins? Why? And what happens next for the 3 participants in the match? I love a fantasy book. I love talking about Impact Wrestling. So, Taya, you've delivered here with this question. It's very interesting because I kind of felt for a long time that this was going to be an escape route almost, because I think the final destination for these 3 and the Impact World Championship is Michael Elgin. I think he will eventually become the world champion. The question is this the way for Elgin to win the belt without pinning Tessa and protecting her? Or is this a way for Tessa to get through another big event to then face Elgin one-on-one afterwards? I think for sure Eddie Edwards does the job here. I think that is probably the safe bet with this. The question mark is going to be who is the one that's going to walk away champion. So I think that the ultimate goal coming out with this is that we're going to build to a future match with Tessa and Michael Elgin, whether it's Tessa trying to get the belt back, which arguably makes the most sense in this point here. I do feel that Tessa has an okay run as champion, but for me, it's not quite worked out the way I've wanted it to. I'm not really sure what aspirations I had with her once she won the championship, but what I would say is that I do feel that the main event scene has felt a bit lackluster, in my personal opinion. I think to be facing, I mean, the tire match was really cool because that was like two women going for the main title in the company, and I think that could have been built longer. I think that had more mileage in it than what it was given. But with the program of Ace Austin, for me, Ace Austin is not in the main event level right now in Impact Wrestling. He's quite happy in that mid card, fifth match of the card kind of area. It brought him up too soon, and where Tessa's kind of jumped herself into the main event spot, it just didn't kind of connect with me. And then seeing like Reno Scum, Trey, Tommy Dreamer, those sort of people in the main event, just has made the main event area feel a bit flat for me. Elgin, he brings a bit of credibility to that main event area, and I think he will eventually become Impact champion, as I say. It just depends on who of them two is going to be. As for Eddie Edwards, what is the best direction for him personally? I would love to see him go back into a program with Sami Callihan over the summer, because I think that was where his best work was done as a singles competitor. I think he's kind of got lost in his character and who he is, and I think Sami can bring that back. I would love to see Eddie Edwards go back to the dark side with Kenny. I think that would be kind of cool to see happen. Because it feels that, Eddie Edwards is kind of dressed in that heel kind of way, but Kenny seems to have kind of got a little bit lost at the moment, and I don't know, just direction in general for Eddie Edwards. He puts together some good matches. Him and Elgin have had a good program, but you could argue as well. The storyline with Ace Austin was decent as well, but since that point, I don't understand Eddie Edwards and where he's going. So for me, I'd like to have a purpose for that. I think Sami would bring it out. That was a really good program with them too. And maybe we could go back to the Eddie Edwards we had at Slammiversary, I believe 2018, when he was taking on Tommy Dreamer at that point. That point where he was a heel, he was a bit twisted, psychotic, lost in the head. I really liked that Eddie Edwards, and I'd like to see that return back. It kind of felt that immediately once we got that established and excited to see where he was going to go from there, he immediately went into, I believe, going for the championship, and then ended up in a program with Moose and ended up with Killcrosss, turning face, and then after that, all that hard work kind of just disappeared. So I'd like to see them kind of revisit that. I think it'd be kind of cool. With Tessa, when she loses the championship, I think comes down to where or when that contract expires. I believe I read somewhere that it's supposed to expire somewhere in the summer. Sad to say, I don't think she'll be sticking past the current contract, because money is going to talk. And for someone like AEW, her father is there. I imagine that she would love to be the face of that division. Within WWE, of course, they could do with the namesake of someone like Blanchard. That is a future, person there that can have an amazing match. With Charlotte Flair being NXT Women's Champion at the moment, what a great place to put Tessa there. You've got your dream match with her and Charlotte. So, I can see that Tessa's going to be in very high demand. But if her contract lasts longer, then yeah, it would be interesting to see what happens with her when she comes out of the world title picture. Personally, for me, I think that it would be kind of cool to see her go back with the knockouts, purely because... not that I'm against intergender wrestling, but I think it comes to a point when she's been facing so many people that are about 2 or 3 times the size of her. There comes a point where you have trouble suspending the disbelief just a little bit. So for me, I would like to see her go back into the women's program. I don't think we've seen a rivalry with her and Havoc, or a proper program of her and Jordan Grace. And Jordan Grace has really elevated herself. So, that would be a great match to see now. I think I'd be quite in favour of seeing that match most, actually. So, yeah, Tessa Jordan Grace would be the route I would go. The hard-hitting wrestling show of our next question in our podcast. Well, just say quickly, check out the podcast. They do some very good stuff. We debate on who would win a dream match. Maybe you can give your answer. The first match is Andre the Giant versus Kofi Kingston, and the second match is Sheamus versus Randy Savage. Who wins and why? Interesting match choices, particularly with Andre, because Andre the Giant, usually you put him in there with the likes of, the Big Show and these sort of big guys. The Undertaker would be another one, Kane. So to see with Kofi Kingston's a different sort of beast altogether. But I would have to bring the 80s fan out of me and go with Andre the Giant, purely because, I mean, Kofi's spent most of his career in the mid-card area. He's not really been top of the card. He had his spell for 6 months last year, but when you look at Kofi against these bigger guys, he's not always fared well. Lesnar being a great example. He lasts just a couple of minutes on both occasions that he's faced Lesnar. Of course, that SmackDown debut on Fox, I believe it was the Beast and the East tour back in, I believe it was 2015 when that happened. So Kofi hasn't really got the best record when it comes against the bigger guys, and I think Andre the Giant didn't job a lot back in the day, so I think that he would be someone that would come out on top. So for me, it would be a clear Andre win on that one. As for Sheamus versus Randy Savage, I think it all comes down to what era of which superstar you're booking. Sheamus, of course, now is sort of being elevated, but almost like his old character, which I'm really pleased to see, by the way. I'm liking the build of Sheamus on SmackDown, just to give that current twist on it. Him and Jeff Hardy, when that program gets started, I think could be a fun one to watch. It feels like they're trying to build both of them up as if they were back in the 2009-10 days. So that's really cool to see. And if we had Sheamus back in the 2009 up until the 2012-13 Sheamus, then you would argue that Sheamus has a real shot here at Randy Savage, because Savage, as great as Savage is, he was never opposed, it feels, to doing a job, putting someone over, making someone look amazing. So, I mean, Sheamus here, it could be someone that could go over in this environment. But if you look at Sheamus and Savage's careers together, particularly the last 7 years of Sheamus's booking, for me, there is only one winner, and I'd have to go with the Macho Man Randy Savage, just purely because I think that he is one of the greatest of all time, and there's no argument in that. So, for me, like I say, maybe it's a bit of a negative against the new school of wrestlers out there in the last 10, 15 years or whatever, but these guys were the people that put the platform of what this is to begin with, and that shouldn't be ignored. So Andre the Giant and Macho Man Randy Savage would be my victors from this. Last but not least, and a change of pace here, DBW Podcast, your favourite soccer team. So we're breaking away from wrestling, and soccer team, I mean, being obviously that I'm English, of course I'm going to say football. I'm probably going to hit the dislike buttons now for saying this, but of course, look, NFL, we kick our ball. We don't use our hands at any point, so that's why it's football for us, not soccer. I am. I do have a team. I'm actually a big West Ham United fan, so come on, you Irons. At the same time, I'm sure there's going to be some dislikes for that as well. You'd probably throw me in it on this one, but I'm a big West Ham fan. I'm missing the Premier League. Football at the minute is a big passion of mine outside of wrestling. So, but of course, with the world we currently live in, it's what needs to be done at the moment. Football for me takes a back seat, and like I said, I'd be happy for wrestling to take a back seat with the new stuff at the moment as well. I'm quite content. There's so much on the WWE network, for example, with wrestling, that you can easily go back. With football, I mean, same with everybody in whatever walk of life, health and safety comes first. Within WWE, they have their own roster where they have the same people there amongst every week. Football, you pay each team twice a season. Even if you have these empty stadiums, you're people of Manchester mixing with people from London, Liverpool to Brighton or whatever, vice versa. And so for me, it's quite critical at the moment that this really taken seriously before things come back. Interesting, you asking me your favourite team. I'd like to know your favourite team as well. Drop me a comment in the comments below. And maybe try not to remind me of all those times that West Ham's probably lost to your team. That would be kind of very helpful. But that's all from me anyway this week here on Ask SCW. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as always. Like I say, I will bring in SCW daily, just something a little bit different, just to break things up. I'll probably do it over the next week. I won't do it every day. I mean, compared to like the days when I give you a different video, it's just so you have one video every day. Maybe it's a news story. Maybe it's something I just see in the product. Maybe it's just an opinion of something somewhere. Let me know your thoughts on it and whether you'd be interested in it. It would be good to know you guys in the wrestling community, just to give you guys a little bit of something extra. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time here on SCW, the wrestling channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. Take care.